News on the air since 1951. This is The Legend. 105.3, 95.3, WDXE.
Yes, indeed, WDXE, and it is time for Friends and Neighbors. And my friend and neighbor today is Mr. Mac Brown. How are you, bro?
I'm great. How about you?
Thanks for agreeing to come in with me this morning.
Well, you're quite welcome.
We've talked about it a time or two over the last several weeks, and today seemed to work out, and we're glad that you're here. Mac Brown, of course, with Mac Brown Photography. That's probably your most famous ID.
I guess so, yes.
And you've been doing that for how many years?
Well, I started when I was in high school and just forgot to quit.
Well, now, did you start Mac Brown Photography even then, or as far as an actual business, or?
Not really. I think I got a business license in probably 71, 72, somewhere along in that
Okay.
time.
But you were teaching too at that time.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's been now, of course, I have known you, I guess, more so in the photography business and known of you from that. And of course, a lot of us always look forward to the fair and the fair booth because you have a famous fair booth. Everybody looks forward to seeing the Mac Brown Photography fair booth with all the pictures.
Well, thank you. But that's the girls at the studio that do. I used to try to do that, but found out they're a lot better at that than I am.
Well, yeah. Well, they seem to be better at a lot of things. But you've got a family business. Your family works with you.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Well, tell us about that a little bit.
Okay. Well, my daughter photographs, and she does children in schools.
Yes.
Rebecca started, I guess it was 2001 in October. She had always helped me, but in that October we had a Christmas session coming up, and I was down a little lake we'd built and started sliding and ended up breaking my ankle. So I wasn't in any shape to shoot Christmas pictures that Saturday.
Yeah.
So she shot.
Okay.
And, she would run down to the house and show me, make sure everything was doing okay.
Yeah.
And she did really, really well at it. And,
Yeah.
And that's kind of propelled her into the business.
Yeah.
And then my son-in-law, Jason,
Yeah.
of course, he's a computer person, which in today's photography world helps out quite a bit. He started hanging around and kept photographing, and he does a lot of seniors and a lot of sports because he loves sports. So he's pretty busy there at some school today. I'm not sure which one. I think they're at Summertown High School.
A lot of school stuff and sports stuff.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. And your wife?
She runs the place. Everything goes through her. She's the brains of the...
Sweet lady, very much so. Well, that's awesome. You got a family business, and that's good.
Yes,
But it has its challenges, I'm sure.
well, it does, but we're pretty well able to shut it off.
Yeah. Well, that helps everybody who we're talking to today, Mac Brown Photography. But I wanted to ask you, I want to go back a ways. Have you always lived in Lawrence County?
Born in Loretta and lived in Loretta until I graduated high school.
Well, your folks then were in Loretta.
In Loretta,
and
yeah.
Who were mom and dad?
Dad was Jack Brown, and my mother was Dina Brown. Dad farmed, and they ran a cafe for years. They were out of that before I ever came along.
Oh, really?
Yes, I had a cafe in downtown Loretta, and then when I was in 7th grade, my dad had a stroke, and he was pretty well unable to work after that.
Oh, okay.
But so I stayed in Loretta until graduated high school and went off to what was then Florence State College.
Did you have brothers or sisters?
I had 2 older brothers who are deceased, and I have a sister, Wanda Noblet, still lives in Loretta.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, see, getting to do this show, I've gotten to know people a little deeper, right. And making connections, family connections, and hear names that I'm familiar with. But your mom and dad, Jack Brown, now, were they native Lawrence Countyans? Did they come from somewhere else? Or
No, they're native. My great-grandfather on the Brown side came up from Jones Chapel, Alabama in the 1880s.
Oh, wow.
And on the other side of my dad's family, the Ellisons, were here as long as before the Civil War, because I know I found them in the 1850 census.
Yeah, that Ellison name I've run across a lot in some old deeds and things like that.
Right. They had a fairly large tract of land in the south end of the county.
Okay.
And in fact, the great grandfather was a miller during the Civil War, and he had. Of course, I'm interested in family history, and
Sure.
he had 3 sons and a daughter. When the Civil War came along, the 3 boys enlisted in the Confederate Army, and the daughter married an Ezel who enlisted in the Union Army.
Oh, my. Okay.
And I always wondered what kind of allegiance, because it certainly wasn't about slavery. They didn't have any. They couldn't afford anything like that. There was a cabin out at what we call Browntown, out from Loretta, that I think was one of the early Ellisons lived in.
Okay. Wow. That's interesting. So you got you know a lot of your family history.
Right, and then
yeah, very good.
my mother's side is German. They
German with the German Catholic.
They
settlement?
came in through Cincinnati, Ohio, and then settled in St. Joe.
A large settlement of Germans in that area down there.
Yes,
Sure was. Those churches down there, I'm sure she was Catholic.
No.
No? Well, what happened there?
I'm going to get in troubles, but the way I understood it,
Okay.
my great-grandfather had a disagreement over the land with one of the priests in Loretta, and he left the church.
Oh, okay. Well, that happens.
Yeah.
That happens in modern day world and ancient world too. That happens. How about that? Well, so you came into the world in what year? And I don't mean to age you, but you came into the world during what era?
I'm a baby boomer, 1950.
1950. Well, so you grew up in the 50s and in 60s, I guess.
Yes.
So what was life like for young Mac Brown?
Well, we lived about a half a mile from, the downtown urban part of Loretta.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in the summer, I'd ride my bicycle down to Uncle Charlie's grocery store and
Yeah.
get a Pepsi Cola and a candy bar.
Now, where was that store?
Okay, that was basically right where Mark Rowland's place is now.
Oh, okay. The Loretta Hardware.
Yeah.
Wasn't that Loretta Hardware?
No, this Loretta. He's in the old Loretta drugstore building, but it was part of the Brown's grocery store, which then became Hunt's grocery store.
Right. Which is the old Main Street there.
Yes.
The old downtown part of Loretta. And that's interesting. The bank building that was there now is a restaurant.
Yes.
Was that bank building there then? I guess it was. That's an old building.
Yes, I had my first checking account there.
Did you really? Well, Loretta was a little different back then.
A little bit. There were more things going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were
Thriving community there.
Yeah, we were fueled by the casket factories,
Oh, that's right.
and of course we had the cotton gin downtown,
Yeah.
on the other end of town.
Now, where was your father's restaurant?
It again, right across from Loretta Auto Parts. It was right in there.
Okay.
The building's no longer there now.
Okay. No longer there. Okay. Were there any other restaurants or anything like that in town down there or during that time, or do you know?
Oh, I was trying to. Of course, things came and went. There was a department store. There was a drugstore, Dotson's drugstore. Dr. Ray Methvin was the first doctor I remember in downtown where the Loretta Hardware is now. But I think Dr. Parrish, who ended up in Lawrenceburg, had an office there.
So he had an office down there too?
Yeah, before Dr. Methvin. And then trying to think what else. Of course, there's Weathers Hardware and Weathers Grocery.
Now, you said you had an uncle that had a grocery?
It's Uncle Charlie.
Now, was he a Weathers?
No, that was he was Brown.
He was a Brown. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So he had a grocery store to go to.
Yes.
Did you do some, and a lot of kids did you have a little part-time job or anything when you were growing up? Or?
Oh, I mowed a couple of yards. I'm thinking, I got a quote on a yard the other day and that I wanted mowed, and I'm thinking, I used to mow that same size yard with a push mower for $2.
Times have changed.
Yes, they have. And then my cousin Jerry had a restaurant, and I worked there during high school.
Really? Now, what restaurant was that?
It was called Jerry's Restaurant. It's a Mexican restaurant now in Loretto.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I can't remember. Of course, it was White's later on, and then
Oh, yeah.
Branding Iron at one time. But
Yeah, that's been through a few changes over the years.
But Jerry and Milton built that building.
So that was the original.
Yes.
So they were the original restaurant owners there.
Right.
Interesting. What kind of restaurant was it? Was just they have just like hamburgers, fries, and things like that?
It was more steaks and fish.
Okay.
Of course, you can't be in a restaurant business if you don't sell fish on Friday.
That's right.
In the South,
That's right.
There's large fascination with catfish.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember my family growing up. We were always, my parents anyway, were always looking for the next great catfish place to go to.
Yes.
Everybody went to eat catfish, and they still do. A lot of the folks around here still do. Interesting.
Yeah, if you go down to Anderson, Alabama, just about any day of the week, you'll see a church bus down there with a load of senior citizens.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So you're growing up, 50s. You went to school. Elementary school was
Loretto Elementary.
Loretto Elementary. Now, where was it during your growing up years?
Okay, it was on North Main. It was just north of downtown.
Yeah. Okay, I think I remember maybe.
The building's still there.
Yeah, I know where it is.
It was a.
Gosh, it's been a long time since that's actually.
Factory, yes.
Yeah.
Loretto Elementary closed, gosh, I guess in 70 something, 4 or 5, somewhere along there.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned the casket factory in Loretto, and I don't know. Do you know when that started? And I'm just asking about Loretto stuff. I know, but
I would say in the 30s or 40s.
Yeah, so that's been around down there. Time.
The first one was down there behind what used to be Killing's store, then it became the Mustang Cafe. But and now it's one of those escape places. So,
yeah.
But I think that was the original casket factory.
Yeah. Well, I need to get some history on that. I don't really know how that got started. That'd be interesting to find out. Need to get one of our Lawrence County historians on that too.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about that coming to be in Loretto. Well, so when did you graduate high school?
1968.
1968. Wow, the 60s were different.
Yes, we had good music. That was.
We did, didn't we?
Yes.
You became kind of a music fan, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I know you trade on guitars, play guitar probably. You and I've we've kind of stepped on each other here and there with guitars. Yeah. I ran into you up at Franklin at that guitar show.
Right.
And you had just purchased one. So how did that come to be with Mac Brown that you got interested in playing music?
I don't know. I had a lot of friends that were musicians.
Yeah.
And back in high school, and I never did because I picked up a camera and took pictures of them. But But I guess in college, my college roommate Randy Cross played.
Oh my, yeah.
And so we'd have folks over and play. So
he's quite a player.
Yeah. Well, time now. Yeah. Now this is not Danny Cross. It's Randy Cross. There's two.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Danny was the great guitar player. Randy was a good guitar player and a saxophone player.
Yes.
He was in a band, but there are always guys over at the apartment playing. So I just kind of tried to learn to play by necessity. So
yeah. Well, I've kind of led around, and we've talked about it. You mentioned it a time or two. What sparked your interest in photography?
Okay, well, there was a gentleman named Rick Alexander from Bonnertown, who was an upperclassman. I was a junior, he was a senior. And he said, if you want to get out of class and not get into any trouble, become a photographer on the yearbook staff, because if you're walking around with a camera, nobody will say anything to you. And I thought, well, that's a plan.
It's a plan.
And between that and Mr. Don Sinbeck in Loretto, Don had a dark room in his basement, and he would let me go down there. I mean, it had an entrance, outside entrance, so I could kind of come and go and develop black and white film.
Oh, wow. Well, let's talk about the photography for a little bit, because it's nowhere near like it was when you started. You started out. It was more. There was a whole lot more to being a photographer when you started than there is maybe today. And there's a lot to it today, but it's so different. It's very different.
Much easier to get an image.
Yeah, it's much easier. So when you do you remember what your first, what I would say, professional type camera might have been, or at least something that you could use for that kind of work? Do you remember what it was?
Absolutely. Mr. John Neidert in Loretta had a chicken house, and there was a photographer on the side.
Oh, really?
Now, I know that doesn't equate to being a photographer and selling chickens, but that's something you couldn't write that. You couldn't make that up. But anyway, he had a little photography business, and then he retired and became a janitor down at Sacred Heart. And he had a camera for sale, which was a Graflex Speed Graphic.
Oh, wow. Never heard of that.
They're 4x5. They're the ones you see in the 40s movies with the press photographer, the guy that has the hat on with the big flash and the big camera that you hold up.
Oh, really?
And, shots, it used 4x5 sheet film, which that's a pretty big picture right there, just the negative.
Yeah.
And I learned, I got some little trays and learned how to develop the negatives, actually in a closet in my bedroom.
Yeah.
And got a contact printer and could make 4x5 pictures. That's the only size I could make. And then I think my first professional job was taking a picture of the Girl Scouts in Loretta.
Oh, really?
Yes, I sold 5x7s, I think.
Now, when did that take place?
Oh,
You still in high school?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow. So you got the bug for it pretty quick.
Well, I guess so, yes.
Well, speaking of that, I don't really know. I don't even know how to ask you about this, but I was thinking about the history of photography a little bit, and I know you well enough to know that I've seen you at my auctions when we've had some old cameras or this, that, and the other, and I've called you a time or two to ask you about a camera that we might have in one of our sales or something, and I would think that you would know probably a little bit of the history of photography and how that, because back before our time, they had the big tripod stand, and you had to put the cover over your head,
right.
and they'd take the lens cap off. It was a whole thing. So, what's that process like? Or I don't even know how to ask you.
Okay.
How do we come from there to where we are now?
Okay. Well,
Did you ever use any of those old things?
I have one that was found in a building in downtown Lawrenceburg.
Really?
That would use that. It shot a 5x7 negative.
5x7, okay.
And it had a little lens cap, a black lens cap, and you would take that lens cap off and count.
Yeah.
To make because the film was so slow. That was a big thing, and of course you didn't have the settings that you do on cameras today.
So it's just kind of an open exposure to the film. And that's why some of these old photographs, there might be a blurry figure because he moved.
Right. And in fact, there used to be things called head clamps.
Yes.
Where they would take a clamp and clamp around their neck. You couldn't see it to hold them still. And
oh, really?
I saw one of those at the flea market and didn't buy it, and I wish I had. But
that's interesting.
And that's why you see, and that's why people didn't. Had these stern-looking expressions because they had to sit still 2, 3, 4 seconds.
I've heard different theories about why people look so stern and didn't smile in those old photographs, and I've wondered about that.
And then the thing that changed it, of course, when Kodak and some of the other cameras got the faster film and the shutters in the mechanical shutters in the cameras, then Kodak came up with one of the greatest marketing lines I've ever heard. It said, "Smile for the Kodak."
Yes.
And so that's why now everybody thinks you're supposed to smile in a photograph.
How about that?
So I don't know that necessarily should, but
Yeah.
you don't. Most people don't want to look too stern. Now,
Yeah, most people do. They say smile, or we say, say cheese and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, and of course we're doing these tough football players, and they're not going to smile.
They don't smile.
No.
No, they don't, not in a sports photograph for a football player.
No.
You don't want to smile. That's interesting. Well, so your first job or photography job, you said, was the Girl Scouts. So did you do individuals or a group, or
Just did a group.
just did a group?
I think I sold maybe 10 5x7s at $75 cents a piece.
Yeah.
I made $7.50, and by the time I paid for the paper and the film, I probably had a nice profit of $1 or so.
Well, you were well on
But
your way.
I was a professional at that point.
You're well on your way. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. So was that with that original camera that you
Yes.
told me about?
Mhm.
So that was that camera.
Yep.
You still have that camera?
No. I traded that. The thing I wanted more than anything back then was a black Nikon F. Because they came in chrome or black, but it seemed just a whole lot cooler if it was a black camera,
Yes.
and especially after they get worn down a little bit, because the black would peel off and you'd see the yellow brassing underneath it, and
Really?
I remember seeing UPI and AP photographers, and of course those guys didn't pay for the equipment, so stuff they had was beat to death.
Oh, wow.
And I thought that's really, it's just like an old guitar that's beat up like Willie's guitar or something.
Yeah.
It has a cool factor to it, but anyway.
So Nikon has been out as how long have they been in existence?
Nikon made it on the scene in the Korean War.
Oh, really?
The S2s, they were basically Leica copies then. But
Okay, I missed what you said.
they were Leica, which is a German camera.
Oh, Leica. See, I don't know my cameras. A Leica, that's a German camera. And then there was a Nikon that was supposed to be like that.
Yes, there's a Japanese. Then Nikon changed over to single lens reflex, which has a mirror and a flap in it, unlike the Leicas, which just has a little curtain to it. So
Wow.
so
Okay.
they're a lot more to them, and that was the standard for years and years.
Yeah. So you traded the one you had, so you got your dream camera.
Yes.
So what was next on the job list? Do you remember, or how did it go from there as far as beginning to get paid gigs?
Okay, well, when I was in college, I started college right after I graduated on Friday and started college on Monday.
Where'd you go to school?
Well, it was Florence State College.
Florence State. Okay.
But then it became, in a year or so, Florence State University. Then, of course, now it's North Alabama.
Yeah, UNA. Good deal. Okay.
But anyway, I went to work for a little weekly newspaper called The Picture, and did assignments. There were two of us. A guy named Ron Wright, who was from Loretta, worked there.
Okay.
And he was a chief photographer, and I was the second photographer. And we photographed a little bit of everything. I mean, a lot of mundane things. We call them like check passings, which, somebody's giving somebody a check.
Oh, yeah.
And they're,
a donation. Or win
smiling,
something. Yeah.
And then, we didn't do much real action news there.
Yeah. Or sports events or something
We
like
did
that.
sports, yeah. We did.
Yeah.
The first time I guess I won an AP award was pole vaulter at Coffee High School, I think.
Yeah.
got a little award for that. And
Okay, so you captured a pole vaulter.
yes,
Wow.
and I don't know how I remember that, but
You still have that photo somewhere?
it's probably somewhere.
Probably
yes.
somewhere. Do you have any? This is just random question, but do you have any idea how many photographs you may have taken?
No, I do not. We have part of the studio has an upstairs, and it is full of boxes of negatives.
Yeah.
I think there may be like 50 boxes, 2 feet by 18-inch boxes
Yeah.
full of negatives, and there's maybe 50 boxes, 40, something like that.
Yeah. Amazing.
And that was, that was when we're still using film. And
Yeah.
then I've got filing cabinets. I think I've got 10 filing cabinets full of DVDs.
Oh wow. So hundreds of thousands probably.
Lots, yes.
Yeah. And then you've got the added help now of 2 more photographers working
Yes.
with you. So it's
We're
something.
adding the images rather quickly. Yes.
You are. That's right. You are. Well, but photography wasn't all. I mean, you went to school. You went through school. You got your teaching degree, evidently.
Yes, I majored in English and history,
Yeah.
UNA, and then, well, it was like I said, graduated Florence State University, but then went back and got my master's in guidance and counseling. And, for 25 years I was a counselor at Loretta High School.
Okay.
And then that wasn't enough, so I went to graduate school again, got my doctorate in English.
Okay. You've been a busy man.
Yes, we.
Now I got to ask you, when did you fall in love, and when did Mrs. Brown come around?
Oh well,
I'd put you on the spot, didn't I?
no, it's funny. I'll have to tell you how. Karen Barnett, who's a friend of who I was teaching with, and
Yeah.
I was a friend of Kathy's. I was photographing her wedding,
Yeah.
and I saw Kathy there.
Yeah.
And she had the best tan in the world. It's summertime, and I had to inquire who she was, and so
Yeah.
I asked her out on a date, and we dated for a while, and
Yeah.
ended up married. I don't know how she talked me into it.
I'll have to ask her. That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, what year did y'all marry? I messed up there, didn't I? Okay, sorry.
Let's see. It's in the 70s.
70s. I'd have to think about it myself. We all do that anyway. Well, good
I hope
deal.
she's not listening.
She's probably not. She's probably not. Well, so what was you were at Loretta High School?
Yes.
So you came back to your hometown.
Yes. Taught there in
Excuse me.
Columbia State at night classes.
Really?
Middle Tennessee a couple of
And
summers.
you were still doing photography work during this time too?
Yes, I was trying to get a lot of things done. But basically, most of my photography back then was weddings on Saturday.
That's what I was going to ask you about. What was the general business for as far as photography at that point?
Back then, that was the thing to do was weddings.
Yeah.
And of course, I did my last wedding. I had a great niece that got married in Nashville a couple of years ago, and I said, I will do yours. And then I haven't done one since, and probably won't.
Yeah, you just get tired of doing weddings, or just got so much other stuff that you're doing?
Well, there comes a time when you want to have Saturdays free.
Oh yeah, I understand.
And
I totally understand. Yeah.
And I have a granddaughter, of course, that plays basketball, and so we go to a lot of travel basketball games on Saturdays.
Yeah, don't blame you a bit. Well, I got to ask you about the wedding photography though, because you're bound to have seen a lot of fun things that happen at weddings.
I've seen a whole lot, yes.
So, is there any memories that stick out that you could share with us, that either funny or unusual weddings that you've been able to go to and take pictures?
I'd have to think about that a little bit, but usually if if there's alcohol involved in the reception, there's usually going to be something funny happen.
Yeah, I'm sure. So after things get loose at these weddings, things happen.
Yes, a lot of people decide they can dance and probably can't.
What's have you as far as capturing images? Do you have any that are your favorites as far as going back through your memory, maybe of images, pictures that you've taken that are high on your list of favorites? And I'm just thinking. I mean, I can't imagine with that many thousands of photographs. It may be hard to pick out anything, but there are such things as famous photographs. I'm thinking about after World War II, the famous photograph of the sailor kissing the lady.
Right.
There's a lot of famous photographs.
Well, that's right. I break away for just a second when you were talking about famous photographs.
Yeah.
The picture of the four soldiers raising the flag over Iwo Jima.
Yes, famous photograph.
Yeah, okay. Well, Joe Rosenthal did that photograph. And my photography teacher at UNA was Nelson Van Pelt. And his photography teacher was Joe Rosenthal.
Really?
And Van had a 5x7 autograph framed picture off the original negative.
Really?
In his office.
Wow.
Since he passed away, I asked his son what happened to it, and Vince said that it was placed in a lockbox in bank in Florence. But
wow.
So no telling what that photograph's worth. But
wow.
But that was a situation. A lot of photography is what we used to call F8 and be there.
Now, what does that mean?
Well, F8 is the aperture opening of the camera.
Oh, okay.
And being there,
Yes.
You can't get it if you're not there.
That's right. Yeah, I see.
And in that case, he just happened to be there.
Yeah.
And he had been doing some just mundane generals walking around stuff and all that. Had one shot left and saw them doing that.
Wow.
I actually saw them do that, and I think he had them recreated. I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly. But
I've heard the story that he did have them redo it so he could take that shot, which I'm glad he did.
Right.
Because it's especially American famous, but world famous
right.
for that matter. I would love to see the statue in Washington of that.
I've seen it.
Have you seen it?
Yes.
I've not been to Washington, D.C., but I'd love to go.
And getting back, you're talking about favorite photographs. I guess the one that always comes back to me is the blacksmith shop in Loretta. I was doing some stuff for the Democrat Union. They just let me do some whatever I wanted to do. And they did a whole page article on Loretta blacksmith shop. And I had the two guys, Tony and Swifty Pat, sitting in the chairs at the entrance of the blacksmith shop. Had a big watermelon out there. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And just chilling because that's, because by 1970, there wasn't a great deal of need for a blacksmith shop. But,
no.
So they sat around quite a bit. But that and some pictures I did of Mr. Tony at the, whatever that thing that you heat up with, he was bending some metal. And you could see, and he had these really thick glasses, and you could see the burn marks in the glass from getting too close to the whatever they heated up with coke or coal.
Yeah, interesting. So that's interesting that would stick out like that. So I'm assuming you have that photograph.
Yeah, that one, and then photograph of the men who solved the world's problems at Ledbetter's Pharmacy.
I think I've seen that photo.
I think that's been around quite a bit. Yes.
I've seen that photograph. I'd like to have one of those myself to put in my office. Is that gettable?
You could find you one. Yes.
I could find one. I would love to have that. That was one of my favorite things to try to find a group of men like that and park among them and just sit there. Used to do that quite a bit.
You can learn a lot.
You learn a lot. It's one of the reasons why I like doing this, is finding folks like yourself to talk to, who have those kind of similar experiences around our community, and of course you've been you and your family all have been a part of the community, Loretta especially, in Lawrence County for a long, long time.
Yes, I'm related to all those Browns down there.
Well, sometimes people call and actually want to talk or ask a question, and you won't be able to hear them unless you put your headphones on. But let me see if that's somebody that wants to talk to you or ask a question. Hey, good morning. You're on WDXE with us.
Yeah, good morning. I'd like to ask Mac if he remembers the Willis brothers. I know whenever I was growing up, they were probably the most famous photographers in Lawrence County, and they billed themselves, I remember, as the Bald-Headed Brothers. Did you ever meet them?
Oh, yes, I knew them well. In fact, went to church with them. The Willis brothers not only were well thought of businessmen, they were wonderful people. I think Mr. Harry, either Harry or Willie, I can't remember which one, taught a Sunday school class for like 70 years.
Oh, wow.
And I remember, I actually have some of their cameras. I bought them at a later time. That's part of my collection.
That's fantastic. Hey, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Very good. Yeah, I remember the Willis Studios, come to think about it. They were up here in Lawrenceburg, close to the post office.
They
there.
were close to the post. That's where the parking lot is.
Yeah.
After John sold the building, they tore that building down and put the parking lot in there.
Very good. Well, so you, if as far as I know, have never had a studio in town.
We had a little office above Dr. Rimke's at one time.
Did you? Okay.
But it was just a short time, and I was still teaching then, so I didn't really have much time to get there. It's
To be at the studio, yeah. All right.
picking up.
So you developed your studio, I guess, and did you build a place out at your home place, or how did that come to be?
Okay, we started upstairs. I had upstairs had a separate entrance, and did a little studio up there, shooting room.
Yeah.
And then we decided that's not going to work, so I built a small building, I think a 20 by 30.
Yeah.
And shot in there for a while, because basically at this time we were still on the road doing everything.
Yeah.
And then we added another office, and then we added another building. So we've got, I guess, about 3,000 or 4,000 square feet there.
Yeah.
But a lot, even today, a lot of our business is on the road somewhere.
Somewhere else, yeah.
Like I said, they're at schools most of the time. Then. Or ball games.
Right. Now, is that kind of? I know on the front end you told me that the weddings were the photography business for the most part, but after that, is it schools and that kind of thing, or were there other areas?
Well, portraits, and then we do a little commercial work.
Yes.
I mean, it's just like, and you know this too. Every once in a while, if there's a big house,
yes,
we'll do real estate things.
Yes.
I've actually done some legal things.
Yes. People don't think about it, but there's a need out there for that. Of course, we've hired photographers, and I think we may have worked with y'all some. Of course, Brad, my son-in-law, dabbled in photography some. Mm-hmm. You know Brad's story, and you guys have been an influence on a lot of folks who kind of took it up and wanted to be a photographer because they see your work. How does that feel when you do that?
Well, I guess I guess it's okay. I don't.
Yeah. Because I mean, honestly, they admire your work. Mm-hmm. I just should say it that way. And it is beautiful work. I've seen a lot of your photographs, and y'all do a great job.
Well, thank you. Of course, I'm more when you're asking about influence. I'm pretty much. I feel more comfortable in the background, behind the scenes. I'm not very good at. I'm not a very good front man. I would never make it as a front singer or anything. I think that's part of my personality is I was a little bit shy, so you can hide behind the camera.
Yeah, I'm pulling you out of your cocoon here on the radio a little bit, aren't I?
Yes.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, I'm enjoying the visit. I've learned a lot. I would like to. I just had my camera out. I bought a camera for taking pictures of houses and stuff when we just need a normal picture. But it has so many settings on it that I have no idea what they mean. And I actually got it all messed up just yesterday, as a matter of fact. And I was like, I had to get online and figure out how to get it back to where it was supposed to be normal. And that's what I was going to ask you about. These cameras have gotten so complex. To me, they're complex. Maybe, I guess photography's gotten simpler because you can put on automatic and take a picture. But if you want to change the setting in one, I'm lost.
Well, that's true. You know, that you can put a camera on P. That's not for professional. That's for program.
Okay.
And pretty much will take care of everything unless you just got things really messed up. But that will take care of most circumstances.
Yeah. Well, you've collected cameras. I know you collect.
Oh, yes.
You've collected a lot of cameras, a lot of the antique old cameras, this, that, and the other. Do you have a favorite?
Well, not really. Of course, one of my prize cameras, well, I'll say there's several.
Yeah.
I have the Mamiya Flex twin lens camera that was owned by Nelson Van Pelt, who was my photography teacher at UNA.
Yeah.
And Van was at UNA from 1948 to 1976.
Oh, wow.
So he had a long tenure, and there's no telling what all he photographed because that was his main camera all those years.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a favorite. And then I've got a Leica and a Nikon FM2 or Nikon F2 that was owned by, both those were owned by Jimmy Moore.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, Jimmy was probably one of my inspirations as far as looking up to what he did.
Yeah.
You know, when I first started, I thought, well, how in the world he does that? You know, now, of course,
Yeah.
It's not so hard to understand.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, Jimmy was a great promoter, you know, as
He was.
far as
Yeah.
doing things. But,
Yeah.
you know, I loved his work because it was different.
Yeah. I have received a photograph from his daughter recently that I had wanted. You know, we had the privilege of doing his sale, and you had to come to the sale, and of course he was a photographer as you, and he had a picture in his studio there that she didn't know who it was in the picture, and I looked at it close, and I said, well, I know who that is, and it was a picture of a younger Willie Nelson, and it was taken from the floor. He's in the studio. It looked like Jimmy might have been on the floor shooting up from his tennis shoes up, and had that famous guitar, which before it was wore out.
Yeah, trigger, yeah.
And so I said, I know it's him because I recognize the guitar, and then I got to look at it, it's him. So I recently obtained that photograph, and so I'm real happy to have it, and it's signed by Jimmy. But so you're talking about having pictures that you like.
That's right. Yeah.
That was one of them.
Now, my favorite is that I didn't take is Jimmy actually gave this to me and signed it, was a picture of 4 young guys that called themselves the Almond Joys.
The Almond Joys.
But it was the Almond Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
Taken in 1964, 5, somewhere along there.
Wow.
When they were trying to make it in Nashville.
How about that? That's pretty cool.
Oh, I've got that framed in my...
That's pretty cool. That's a prize right there.
Yes.
That's a prize. Well, I've called you several times when I've had cameras or you know, something like that, and you've collected some over the years. I know it's changed so much, and I'm ignorant to this because I don't know enough about the history of cameras and what have you. And even when you've named some of them, I don't really know what you're talking about that much as far as that goes. But those cameras that you're talking about, can you still get film and actually work with those older cameras now and do the darkroom work? Is that still something that's done?
Oh, yes. In fact, I think there's a little bit of resurgence in black and white film photography.
Yeah, because that's old school.
Yes.
That's old school photography, and not many people, you know, have ever even been exposed, pardon the pun, to that. I had a little bit of it at the graphic arts class at the high school, but it was in the realm of printing.
Right.
And we had a camera where we developed the negatives for burning the printing plates.
Yeah, light
which
camera.
was a light camera and all that. So I did a little film developing in that arena. myself, but photography, no. That's a different animal.
Right. Well, it's like everything else. It's changed over the years. You know, it went from larger format film to smaller format film to digital, like the digital single lens reflex.
Yeah.
And then we're in the world of mirrorless cameras now.
Now, what's the advantage of that, or is there?
Well,
You're going to get technical on me, I guess.
there's
That's
a
a
lot of it,
technical
like
question.
touch screen type things, and
Yes.
it's a lot easier to do video. You know, one time you had to have a video camera and a film or a
Yeah, or still
camera.
Yeah.
Now I've got a couple. I can do videos just as easily as I can do.
Yeah. Yeah, so they switch back and forth, and
Yes,
it's all digital.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting. What about the process of, now I know, I guess it was different when you developed a film like we're talking about in the dark room, and you're developing just the film, and you get a picture and it is what it is. But now I know from my own personal experience of having a portrait made that y'all can make me look better than I actually look.
Well, that's always been true to us. You know, but it's a lot easier these days. You know, in the old days with film, you know, if you wanted to retouch, like, of course, one of the first things to retouch is underneath the eyes a little bit.
Yeah.
And around the eyes, crow's feet, soften them. Back then, if I was doing a portrait and I knew I wanted it to be a little softer, I had either some crinkled up cellophane or a piece of pantyhose stretched over an embroidery hoop. And when I was printing it, I would slide that between the light and the paper and soften it up a little bit.
Really?
And you know, those are things you do, you know, different types of diffusion.
No,
Also,
I had no idea that you could actually, in the old development days that you're talking about, that you could enhance those photographs like that.
Oh yeah, there.
Really?
And of course, there's some nasty acids you can do to put in there to lighten some things or darken some. And of course, you can darken things by just adding a little exposure to it. And there's a lot of things you can do. Basically, you know, digital photography, the way that the programs work are copies of what we used to do in film photography.
Yeah.
It's just a lot easier to do.
Yeah.
You know, now those crow's feet and lines under the eyes, Tiffany she circles that little thing and does it real fast.
Just click it a few clicks and it's done. That's interesting.
And
Well, I'm using a photograph for my business card that you guys did for me. I don't know how many years ago. And so
it still works.
It still works. I still have it on my card. But what's funny is every once in a while I'll hand it to somebody and they'll look at that and go, and they'll say, that picture was taken a while back. What? Because I probably needed a newer one, but I still want you to make me look good.
Right. We can do
Which
that.
is a challenge, I'm just saying. Oh, my goodness.
We've done some interesting things in retouching.
Well, I wanted to follow up with, there's so much we could talk about, but I wanted to follow up with this because a lot of people know Mac Brown Photography from the fair booth. They really, really do. And your girls do all that and make that happen. When did that start with you guys? Do you know?
Oh, I know we bought one small. John Birdstone was still in business then.
Yeah.
And we bought one small booth.
Yeah.
And put a few 16 by 20s, 11 by 14s, and we just kept growing over the years. And then when John gave it up, of course, he basically, that was the first thing you saw when you walked in.
Yeah.
And we took that spot on saying that we would do something really special. And so every year we've had themes, you know, we did the Crockett Theater one year. We've done a little, we usually have some kind of theme to go with it.
Right.
The beach theme wasn't my favorite because we bought a ton of sand and put in there.
Oh, my.
And, of course, for some reason, they wanted us to get it out of there.
But yeah, they wanted you to get that sand out of there.
Yes, and we did.
Oh, my goodness.
But
That's interesting.
And I think that was the one we had the back end of a 57 Chevrolet in the back end of it. So
Seems like I remember that now.
But it's a lot of fun, and we probably don't spend as much time. We don't have to spend as much time as we'd like to, but you get to see a lot of people there. And one thing about what I've done over the years, I've made some really good friends.
Yeah.
Of course, we do a number of schools in Murray County, and Lewis County, Wayne County, Giles County, and Lauderdale County. So, a lot of good folks at those different places.
Staying busy. Well, you guys you have the studio way out Granddaddy Road, isn't it?
That's correct, on Bradley.
Oh.
Come off Granddaddy and go on Bradley Road.
On Bradley Road. Got a wonderful studio and facility out there, and but of course, if someone wanted to hire your services, how would they find you?
Oh, we're on the web and Facebook and landline. So 762-4263.
4263. I was going to promote you a little bit. 762-4263. And of course, I'm sure you have a Facebook page. Mac
yes.
Brown Photography, and you can see some examples of their work and things like that. And of course, what's on the horizon for you? What do you think the future holds out there? Just hold her steady, or is it changing still?
Well, everything's going to change. Of course, for me personally, I'm still, and I can't get much done because I'm still hitting school so much right now, and I just don't. I've got to the age I don't get as much done as I would like to.
Oh, I understand.
But I've been going through negatives and prints and finding some things, and I don't know. I'm trying to cull out some things and make some print. I don't know what I'll do with it. I've thought about a book. But
I was going to ask you if you thought about a book.
I've thought about it for about 5 or 6 years, but the problem is it takes effort, and sometimes I lack it.
Well, hey, it takes effort and time to do something.
Yes,
like
it does take a lot of time. I pulled a couple of prints in the last couple of weeks that I'm thinking, but of course I'm going to have to pull hundreds of prints, and then get it down to what I want and try to come up with some kind of theme.
Well, good deal. Well, Mac, thank you so much for coming in today. I really do appreciate it. You and I have talked about it a few weeks ago and a couple of times since then, and I've been wanting to have you in. It's been very interesting. We'll hope to have you back sometime.
Well, thank you. And I hope you haven't lost all of your listeners by now.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. In fact, you can even go back and take a look at it yourself if you want to. We're on live on Facebook and YouTube, and those are out there for folks to see. You can find it on WDXE's Facebook page right there. Pretty easy. Mac Brown, everybody, Mac Brown Photography, and his family that have been in business here for I don't know how long, a long time, and look forward to seeing more and more work out of you.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
All right.
It's been fun.
God bless, buddy.
Thank you.
Broadcast services of Prospect Communications.
That bridge collapse is not just affecting Baltimore. I'm Dave